Well, good morning, guys. Once again, it is I, the chairman, here with another review of physical media. And this time I wanted to review a few of the more recent Vinegar Syndrome releases that I've watched, just to let you know what I think of them. And so I wanted to start off with one that was not on my um, list. I did not get this as part of any subscriber review. Sorry, any subscriber package. And it is this film called The Caller, starring Malcolm McDowell and Madeline Smith. And I really came onto this film by complete accident because one day I was scrolling through my news feed and they just give you a bunch of articles to read. And one of them was an article, I don't remember what the site was, that was listing the best films from the different boutique labels such as Severin, Blue Underground, Vinegar Syndrome, and the like. And The Caller was on the list. And just reading about it really intrigued me because it is essentially a two-character film. I mean, it is. There's only two actors on screen, and they're Malcolm McDowell and Madeline Smith. And the concept is really intriguing, very mysterious. Basically, Madeline Smith plays a woman. She's apparently married. She has a child. You never see them. You only see pictures of them. And she lives apparently in a cabin in the middle of the woods, all by herself. And she's apparently preparing dinner one night, waiting for the supposed boyfriend to arrive, who never does. And you see a guy who's been stalking her since the daytime, looking at her window, kind of spying on her, snooping on her. And then Malcolm McDowell knocks on the door, asks her if he can borrow her phone because his car's broken down. And what's weird is that early in the day, Madeline Smith has found a broken down car on her drive home. And so then there's all sorts of mysteries being laid, and you're really wondering, do these people know each other? Do they not? They have this really kind of odd dialogue with each other where they start off being very polite, and then things just kind of turn. And the whole time you're kind of trying to figure out what's going on, what's the connection between the two. And to really describe any more of the film would give it away. In fact, even the description on the back, I think, gives too much away, because even in your mind, to already have the thought of how the film is going to end, or where the film is leading, kind of ruins the interest or the intrigue as to what exactly is going on. So this is one of those films that definitely, the less said about it, the better. It's just a film that you just have to start watching, because anything more, like I said, will just give too much away. Like throughout the film, I was thinking about whether this film would end up the way it did, and it did end up that way. But I almost didn't think that was the case. I didn't think really that it would have led there. So even in that way, just to have that thought in your head of, I'm wondering how this film is going to end up, and then just trying to think of all the different multiple options that there are, and it does go in that direction. It's still really surprising. It's still really, I guess, enjoyable to experience this film, really going in cold. And I would encourage everyone to do that. Now, at first, I wasn't too sure about Madeline Smith as an actress, because clearly McDowell is a much better actor. I mean, his voice, his mannerisms. I mean, you know, Malcolm McDowell from A Clockwork Orange, his legendary role as Alex. I mean, he takes over the screen. He chews scenery like no one else. And sure, he's been in some clunkers, he's been in some bad films, but he always brings his A game, and he's bringing his A game in this film. And he's playing it really interestingly. He's trying to be, at times, polite, then being a little bit kind of annoying, maybe menacing. Like, he likes to just start touching her stuff, looking at it, everything. Like, he has something for everything. He has a line for everything. Like, anything that she says to him, he has a response. He's quick-witted. He just knows exactly what to say to her. And she feels like she's forcing her performance I don't know whether that's intentional because in the beginning she's supposed to feel or supposed to act vulnerable, um, nervous, maybe a little bit uh, uneasy about who this guy is and what he's trying to do. And as the movie progresses later on, I won't give it away obviously, but you feel like she becomes more confident. Um, her performance is a little more short, but I still feel as if he's overpowering um, the dialogue between the two. And but still, for the most part, I still feel the film is very well written and very well directed by Arthur Allen Seidelman. Um, this is one of those films that really lives and dies on the quality of the two actors, the writing and the direction, and it could have gone very poorly if not if not done as well because you only have the two. You don't have anyone else to rely on. You have no other um, story aspects, any other story beats. You have nothing to save them if if the two leads, or rather the only two actors, are not on top of their game and are not bringing their full performance, then the film's going to fail. So, in that sense, I would regard this film as having been a success. Unfortunately, yeah, I never heard of it. I'm pretty sure it's been well forgotten by pretty much everyone. But it's definitely a film worth finding out again, re-exploring. I have no idea whether it's on any streaming service. It probably isn't, but it's definitely a film that should be hopefully rediscovered because of just how interesting and intriguing and unusual the premise is. So that's The Caller. And the other film I picked up, this was not part of the package either, but just as I think this was actually just re-released by Vinegar. I think just the slipcover, but this is Don't Answer the Phone from 1979, a classic exploitation slasher film. And the one thing about this film is that despite the very kind of on the nose title, and you see the cover and everything, this is actually a really very well made film, a very good looking film. And one of the things that really benefits of it is an excellent scan and restoration in 4K from the original 35mm camera negative. They put a lot of care and a lot of attention into this film. Now, the original camera negative looks like it was already in very good shape, but what they did to this film is really A grade. It brings it up to a level where it looks just as good as similar films from the 80s, starring much bigger names. I mean, it really does look good. One of the things is that I have no idea what the budget was, but they shot and showed the LA area very well. Like, for example, there's one scene where they find a body next to Angel Stadium in Anaheim, and like they're just right there. They're just shooting the whole thing, and it looks great. The outdoor scenes are very well lit, very bright, very detailed. Even interior scenes look good as well. There were actually very few scenes very few shots where they had a poor source or it wasn't as good. Everything was pretty darn good, even in the really dark scenes. I felt that this was definitely one of the better looking non 4K films that I've seen from Vinegar Syndrome. So I have to give a lot of credit to them for restoring this film so well. The other thing about this film that is really interesting is that despite the slasher exploitation aspect to it, they brought a lot of I guess nuance and interest into the performances. I mean, it could have been all very one note, but to their credit, they didn't keep it just one note. For example, the relationships between the two lead cops investigating the murders, Hatch and McCabe, is really interesting. I mean, a lot of it is buddy cop stuff, but it's done in an intriguing and an interesting enough way where it's not just one guy's a straight guy, one guy's the comedy guy. Like Hatch is obviously the kind of the more burned out, more he's not the funny guy, but he says funny lines, whereas McCabe is a straight guy, kind of riffing on a Dirty Harry thing, because he does have this exchange with the lead female character, the Dr. Lindsay, who plays a radio psychologist, and she's saying like, oh, you guys, you cops, make these criminals worse than they are. And she's obviously trying to help the guy because he calls in because the killer has called into her show under a fake name and just trying to goad her. And so there's this exchange where, um, you know, McCabe is trying to present himself as just being kind of like a tough guy cop who just wants to put the guy away, doesn't really care why he's doing this, what his psychological motivations are, if there's any way that he can be treated or cared for. He doesn't care about that. So it starts off that way, but then later on they do develop a relationship, and it's actually a quite well written relationship and acted, I must say. And actually, the relationship between the Hatch and McCabe was so good that I kind of wish that they had went on to do another film, or this could even have been like a TV series with these two guys, because just the way that they talk to each other, you could tell that they respected each other, but also, you know, they still were willing to call each other's bullshit when the opportunity was required for it. So in that way, I really like that interplay between the two. And then I also have to give a lot of credit to Nicholas Worth, his performance as Kirk Smith, the killer, because, you know, again, this could have just been one note. He could have just been a total creepy, insane lunatic killer, but he's bringing a lot of range to this. He has to go from playing creepy lunatic to playing like a regular guy, well mannered, because um, he has to pretend that he's a fashion photographer who is able to then con his victims into letting him in, letting down their guard so that he can then kill them. So he has to play like a normal guy, and then also when he's by himself, he's vulnerable. He's crying. He's clearly suffered a tremendous amount of psychological abuse and neglect, and so they're trying to suggest that this is really what is at the source of his killing. Obviously, he's also had a lot of PTSD, probably from having served in Vietnam. It's suggested, although it's never actually said, but it's suggested that he is a Vietnam veteran because he's wearing his fatigues, his airborne shirt. So, yeah, and I also wanted to bring up another interesting aspect of how well this film looks, is that it really does highlight the interior decoration, the set design that you see in a lot of these late 70s, early 80s films with the monochromatic look. So, for example, there's a scene inside Dr. Lindsay's house, and in her kitchen she has chairs, a teapot, her cups, and a salt and pepper shaker, and they're all the same mustard yellow color. This really garish mustard yellow color, but it just shows up so well, so richly on screen that I just couldn't help but be drawn to it by just noticing how amazingly rich and detailed the color was with this mustard yellow, and it's just a detail that obviously shows that somebody went, and whoever was in charge of set decoration, they said we need to have this lady have the matching colors in her kitchen, and so it just worked out great that it does show up so well, because they shoot it the first time, and then they go back to it because by this time the other killer has already snuck into her house, and then so he's stalking her, and then so they go back to the shot after as she's pouring tea in it. So I just thought that was an interesting scene to bring up. Now, so these were two really good titles that I got from Vinegar Syndrome. I just wanted to highlight a couple others that maybe not as good. So, as part of the Black Friday release from last year was Steel and Lace. Now, this was like a made-from-cable film, and I remember watching this on, I can't remember, Skinamax probably, and watching it here, I mean, it's not much better looking. Unfortunately, it was shot for cable, so it's in a 1:33 to 1 aspect ratio, which shouldn't be bad, but there was definitely a limitation on quality with this film. And this film was kind of typical. Um, the Gailey, the lead female character, uh, she's raped by a bunch of rich pricks, and they get off. She commits suicide. Her brother, played by Bruce Davison, is a genius inventor. So she essentially rebuilds her as like a cyborg killer, and then goes on a rampage of revenge, knocking off each each of the friends who was aiding and abetting the rapist. And it's just it's all right, but nothing special. I think I'm going to sell this one. I am going to sell this one. So, I mean, it's a great set. Obviously, nice slip cover and everything, but really, really no point in me keeping this one around. And so this other one that I've already put up for sale, because this thing is like my son says, it's trash. Master of the World. No idea why anyone even want to make a film like this. It's supposedly set in like 100,000 years ago. I have no idea whether they're Neanderthals or Cro-Magnons. Basically, get a bunch of people run around just grunting, made up to look like prehistoric humans. There's this barest thread of a plot involving, I guess, a guy who doesn't look as Neanderthal as the other ones. He has a name, Bog, but they don't even speak. There's no dialogue in this film, other than like this one guy speaks some prehistoric language, and they don't even subtitle it. So he's the only guy. I guess he's the guy who talks, and the rest of them are just like grunt. They just grunt at each other and just run around doing, you know, stereotypical caveman things, bashing people over the heads and things like that. I couldn't even. I tried to fast forward to see if there's even anything good to see, and there wasn't. So I don't know what's going on. Yeah, this thing is pretty. I don't even know why they made it, because I can't imagine. I just can't imagine that they're actually selling any of this. So I'm gonna put it up on eBay and hope someone's dumb enough to buy this, honestly, because I wouldn't even recommend anyone buying this film. To be honest, I don't know that anyone would actually want to buy this if it wasn't included in the subscriber package. So, but yeah, I just hope someone will buy it, because I don't want it on my hands. So, you know, unfortunately, it is what it is. So anyway, yeah, that's my review. The Vinegar Syndrome March package is coming out, and there's two of them on there I want to keep. One of them I already know I want to sell. Just looks like it's totally not worth my time. Got a couple other videos I have in mind that I want to do, such as a Mad Max anthology review. So look forward to that. And until then, keep watching the physical media, and I'll talk to you later. See ya.